What's bonkin', everybody, and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona 5 podcast where we play Persona 5 Royal in real time along with the in-game calendar dates, and we're finally getting into the Royal stuff, the real meat of it. My name is Tom Marks, joined as always by a very shocked Jonathan Dornbush.
Everything happened. I was just like, we were going, and obviously we'll talk about it in the show, but it started off, there's some days skipped, and then it gets in, and I'm like, all right, this is probably going to be a pretty quiet and simple week. And then just everything happens.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. We're going to get into all of that everything shortly. We do have a little bit of housekeeping. First, just a quick, updated reminder that, as you if you couldn't tell from that reaction, Jonathan has not played the Royal content before. I have. Also, a lot of fans out there haven't, and people listening. So, be light on spoilers. Don't spoil people, right? We're still getting into this in real time in a more genuine way than we were. Well, not genuine, but you know what I mean. In it's higher stakes now that we have this sort of thing, and it's gonna be fun. Anybody who has played knows what's coming, and it's gonna be fun to get Jonathan's live reaction on all that stuff.
But yeah, no, I think it's been pretty good overall. But yeah, there's been so much great discussion in the YouTube comments. So if you're commenting there, just be mindful, especially that there are people who are playing along as well for the first time, not just me. Obviously
right.
with our jobs, I get spoiled all the time on things. But especially
it's sacred.
This is what matters. This is this game years after it has come out is what matters, to not spoil.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's been incredible that I haven't been spoiled. So to get to this week and to see everything unfold and literally not know a beat of it was just amazing.
Well, I mean, it's the funny thing is when you hide spoilers at the end of a 130-hour RPG, it's like a lot less people are talking about them on the internet.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Anyway, first, we did have a pop quiz from last week, if you remember last week, which for us was 3 weeks ago or whatever. I hope everyone enjoyed we definitely enjoyed taking some time off. I hope everyone still enjoyed the episodes as we digested and discussed last week and the week before that. But our quiz from last week was, what is the name of the final move, the ability you use to kill the final boss of the base game? And we did get a couple right answers. Siddharth, Elek, and Thomas all got this right in the comments on youtube.com/Dornology. Jonathan, did you have a guess, or did you already know it, or any of that?
Because I remember it had to do with the 7 deadly sins.
Yes.
So I assume sin is in there. So I haven't looked at the comments. So I assume sin is in there somewhere, but other than that,
correct.
I have not been able to I want it to be really silly, but I feel like it's only going to go so far, but I wish it was the sin shooter, 6 shooter sort of thing, But, that's about as close as
terribly far off.
Okay.
Yeah. The ability was called Sinful Shell.
Okay.
Because you shoot him with a bullet.
That's fair. Yeah. And
a sin bullet.
It's still such a good moment. I know, obviously for us, it's been a few weeks since we played, but I do, that scene is now so much more crystallized in my head. I think without, obviously, the ending of 5 ends differently than Royal, since we have more to talk about with Royal, but I think I played the, last 10 or so hours of 5 in, a fever dream day. And just marathon, so it all blurred together. So now, getting to actually take my time with it, I remember that moment so much more, and it's just so good. It's such a good final boss.
And before we get into the bulk of the new year, we haven't had a chance to go through comments really for the last 2 weeks, so we wanted to kind of look at what some people were saying from the last episode and the end of the game and pick apart a few other things, because there was some really good discussion happening, and there was some really good moments pulled out. First of all, Siddharth mentioned, I mentioned how Mishima saves the world, because Mishima is the one who rallies people. And Siddharth says, if Mishima is not maxed out, the scene where he rallies all the people to root for the Phantom Thieves does not occur, and instead it's just some random NPC that starts rooting for the Phantom Thieves. So that's kind of neat that they thought about that.
Yeah.
Right?
I appreciate that a lot. I think it's... I guess I must have, because I didn't max Mishima out the first time, so I guess I must have just watched the final NPC. But it felt so right that it was Mishima.
Yeah.
Of anyone, so I'm kind of glad that because I was just thinking of I wonder if they had maybe Like, what would it have been like if they recorded that line for a couple of other people? But I think it being Mishima or just a fan of the Phantom Thieves probably makes the most sense.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of moving. I tried to keep these semi-chronological in the course of the finale. This is a long one from Thomas, but it is actually like a really interesting kind of like background on the naming of the final boss that I did not know, and I wanted to bring it up because it's just really cool. So Thomas says, one thing I really like about the final boss is that he's named Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth is a deity from Gnosticism, with a silent G at the end, which is an offshoot of Christianity from the late 1st century that incorporated a lot of classical Greek ideas about spirituality into their beliefs. Gnosticists believed that Yaldabaoth, he has a bunch of other names, they also called him, but we'll stick to that one. For example, if people are looking this up, I did some research on this to make sure that Thomas wasn't just like getting me to say a bunch of stuff that he had made up. The most common name, I think, is Demiurge, from what I could see, which is a word I'm much more familiar with than Yaldabaoth, but it's multiple names. Yaldabaoth was the god from the Old Testament who created the physical realm, while the god that fathered Jesus was Monad, who created the spiritual realm. This is all Gnostic beliefs, right? Yaldabaoth was a vain and foolish god who believed himself to be the true supreme being and thus demanded humanity worship him, despite being lesser than humanity itself, as humanity was given souls by Monad. There's a lot more about Gnostic beliefs that could be read into, but it boils down to the name identifying him as a false or lesser god that does not truly know what is best for humanity, but demands obedience and worship anyway, which is a solid, if obscure, name for the final boss given the story of the game. I think that's super cool.
That's
like,
so rad, yeah.
This game does this all the time, right? Like, it has all these, like, religious beliefs from all these different religions kind of mixed in to have messages in different ways. But, like, yeah, this is one I had no idea about and is like a really, really neat sort of hat tip at the end here.
Yeah, no, I love that. As you said, I think the game, even just within the persona names, obviously is grabbing from a ton of different belief systems, and obviously, you know, belief systems from out time also take from one another and remix things or have similar names for different things. I mean, in the same, even just like with that, it's like God has different names in different beliefs, like can be called God, can also be called Yahweh, can be called other things in certain religions. Like that is just a thing. And it's so interesting to me because like I was raised, I went to Catholic school for 13 years, and it was always such a funny thing to me when teachers would be like, so yeah, God in the Old Testament is kind of meaner, but he's nicer in the New Testament. And it's like, we never really were taught, there's not like a specific, I don't remember being taught a specific reason for that, but I do like that there is sort of an offshoot of like a certain sect that does believe that there is actually a fundamental difference between those two. That is like an interesting take on that.
That they're actually two different beings or whatever.
Yeah, which is really cool. And totally makes sense for this game to pull in.
Yeah. It's I like that. I like that they do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Moving past the final boss, Hannah had a comment about the Christmas Eve or Christmas Day romance or whatever, which I didn't realize. Somebody else mentioned this. I can't remember exactly who. I'm sorry. That these scenes are very different in Royal because in the base game, you're going to prison. Right. And this is like the last time you have to spend with this person.
Yeah.
And so that's like a lot. They're a lot happier this time around, which is neat. But Hannah said, I didn't romance anyone this playthrough, and can I just say this quote-unquote single Christmas scene you'll get is also really cute. You have a family Christmas with Sojiro and Futaba, and it's very wholesome. It also has one of my favorite dialogue options where Sojiro asks if you're spending Christmas alone, and you can respond with, turkey is my one true love. Which is very good.
That's adorable. Yeah, I'm glad it doesn't make that feel like a punishment to not have chosen a romance. Because obviously, like, you know, playing through all of the confidants, it eventually is going to push that on you, and you kind of feel almost like, who do I have to pick? But you can just pick no one, and it's nice that there is like still a enjoyable scene for that.
Yeah, they do a good job of that too, right? Because it's the same thing with Hawaii.
Yeah,
and like they give you opportunities where, like, if you're not getting romance options, the hang out with your friends or like platonic hangout scene that you kind of get as like like the default is like always still amusing,
fun,
and good.
In some
it doesn't feel like you just like miss out on something by skipping the dating, which is nice.
Totally.
And then finally Ratchet Fella said, "Yes, Royal, let it begin. Jonathan, I'm so happy you're finally here. Having played the base game first, when Akechi walked on screen and said he'd take the fall, I bawled. I was such a mess. I can't wait for your reactions in the next episodes. I love this show and y'all so much. Thank you." And we're excited to get into it too. This is gonna be fun.
What?
If this first week is any indication.
Right? I was like, okay, but then where do we go after this? Ah, man.
It's gonna be good. Although I guess I will say, I guess like a big portion of the like what is going on does get answered this week, so
That's
we can
fair.
talk about that, and I'm very excited too. So let's get into it. This is the week of December 27th through January 2nd. So let's start out. December 27th, Jonathan, what'd you do? December 28th, what'd you do? No, we're not going to do this for all. So December 27th.
It skips.
Following the 26th, which was also a skipped day, 27th, 28th, 29th are all time jump. So you jump straight to the 30th. And
May I say, a perfect place for fan fiction for anyone who would like to leave it in the comments.
Because in the base game, this time jump is a little bit longer. It's like a week or two, I think.
Okay.
And you're going to prison. So like that's what that is.
More of a little bit of a different build up for those couple weeks, but yeah.
Yeah. So we go to December 30th, which is a very quick day where you're just doing like a group text with everybody who's super happy and excited and says, "Hey, let's do a party for the New Year's Eve tomorrow. And also you should invite that cool Kasumi girl that you like."
We should include her in the game now. Let's do that. Yeah.
Well, we'll get enough of her later in this week. So that's basically the 30th, is you're just like, "Hey, let's have a party tomorrow." And everyone's like, "'Kay." And then they say invite Kasumi, and you do. And then we move on to the 31st.
Yeah.
The 31st is your New Year's soba party, as I put it. You have a Sojiro gets does he make or buy? I can't remember. I think he makes soba for everyone.
I think
so, like
he makes
Sai
it.
And Kasumi and everyone come over and
It's
big party.
I do want to say, I think what's really funny about all this too is this is just the start, but man, this group is really just in party mode for this week. You know, other than the like WTF of everything else going on our behalf, they're just all like, "Man, we need to have another party." And then they're like, "It's been so long since we've had a party like this," and it's like it's been 2 days. But this is the beginning of our partying, and everything seems fine.
But at this point, obviously we know stuff is about to go terribly wrong. But at this point in the story, like the gang, as they see it, like Akechi is alive. Shido is going, as we find out, is finally being charged.
Yeah.
The metaverse is gone. Morgana is alive, right? Like everything went fine, and they have nothing else to do. Right?
Yeah.
Like
no, I get it. You know, after all this, it's the one obvious thing to do, and they're all celebrating in their own ways. Like the most important moment, I think, of the whole week, when Yusuke gets everyone to compliment his scarf.
Yeah.
Just very knowingly is like, "Hey, do you like my scarf? Don't say you don't."
It's a really nice scarf too.
It's fabulous. I adore it. But it was funny because I at first was like, Yusuke, you got a little bit of a scarf right there, my dude. And then that became like the central convo for a little bit.
I also don't remember when that scarf ever comes back up.
I hope it doesn't. I hope it never appears again. I hope it was just for that one scene.
Yeah, so you kind of just are all hanging out, right? Like the bulk of this is just like looking forward towards the new year, being excited for stuff coming up, being just like being sort of settled for a moment and like enjoying it.
Yeah.
There's a couple. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say there was one small thing during the party, and I don't know if it's me overanalyzing, trying to figure out clues or anything for this month. But it was just one. They brought up how much Kasumi eats, and people were like freaked out a little bit about it.
Well, isn't that just what the joke? That's just the joke.
Okay.
Is that she eats a ton.
Now I'm on all alert that every single thing related to that character may somehow be a clue of something.
That's fair, but yeah, that's just the running gag of like Kasumi is an athlete, and even though she's super thin or whatever, she like eats just tons of food to fuel her gymnastics. The other the kind of main reveals from this are on the news. Sai confirms that Shido is actually being charged, which we already said. And then the other thing is that she reveals that the woman who made the false testimony against Joker because of Shido way back when came forward to tell the truth about what happened, and Joker's criminal record will likely be expunged or will probably get like cleared.
Yep.
Which is great.
Oh yeah, everything's turning up Joker, and it's wonderful to see. And then it feels like mostly a day to just continue sort of the like. It's weird because we're in this sort of like this would be sort of, I keep saying sort of because I don't know how to say it without spoiling too much, but the denouement period of the game, and so it's this interesting thing of it's also now setting things up again. And tomorrow is the day where it really ramps. Right? Yeah. Other than of course the reveal today that there's a handsome man on TV that An seems to like, and Morgana would like to be like that man.
I'm sure that will never come up again.
Mysterious. Anyway, let's move on.
Did that stand out to you when it first happened? Or was it just another Morgana moment?
It did, only for the fact that they made a big deal about how handsome the guy was. So I was like, oh, is he going to be a new character this month? Like, is he going to somehow play into the story? Like, are we going to have another run-in at the TV station with this guy now? And he's going to
They add another party member.
Exactly. That was the only thing that stood out to me, but obviously we'll get to that.
Wouldn't it be great if we were like the entire time like it's really nice that they're incorporating Kasumi early into the story so that they don't just introduce someone at the very end, and then at the very end they're like, oh, there's also another person.
This new guy, this completely new party member. I mean, at this point, I don't know. All bets are off. It could be anything for me.
Or maybe I'm saying that so you won't expect it.
Exactly.
No. So that's the party. Everyone looks forward to the new year. And then you go to bed. And then you wake up. Ooh. And Joker has this kind of weird dream sequence, right? Where you wake up in Maruki's office in your prisoner outfit. Which is very strange. And you're sort of like, why are people racing cars outside of my house all day?
A natural question. Yeah, that you ask.
It's just nuts, right? Like,
of all blocks, like I've been on your block. It's not like it's race central. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so where was I? Oh,
you were in the dream, which is really, I do want to say, because obviously this is my first time seeing it.
Yeah, tell me your first reaction to this.
It's real spooky. Like, it is surprisingly well done in how kind of creepy it is. Like, obviously when he goes to the jail cell throughout the game, it is a dream. We go through the wires or the chains and everything, and then we wake up there. But it's such a contained area. This was getting into the school. Everything is somewhat occluded in shadow on the outskirts. Like, I was not sure what was going to show up, and for the brunt of it, you were the only character save for the butterfly, which has larger persona implications. But yeah, I was honestly thinking, oh, this could turn into a horror game right now, and I would not be shocked.
Yeah. Well, it does not.
Yes.
So instead, what you have is this dream sequence where you're following this butterfly out of the school, and while you're following it out of the school, you're hearing the voices of your teammates, right? You're hearing the voices of Ryuji and Haru, and I think it's Ryuji, Haru, Makoto, and An, everyone who goes to school with you, right? And you're basically just getting little glimpses of them saying like lines from earlier in the game about different things here and there, which in retrospect we know are about like basically little bits of like, their desires essentially, or things that they want. which will tie into a thing in 2 days. And then as you kind of get to the door of the school, a voice comes over the PA, not an actual voice, but a text voice, that says, like, oh, so you still haven't accepted it yet, huh? Well, I won't force you. Like, I'll talk to you later, basically. And you leave. The next morning you wake up, and it's January 1st.
Happy
it's
New
a new
Year's.
year. Happy New Year.
And in real life, to everyone listening along.
Yeah, also Happy New Year. There's a kind of like pink, like cherry blossom thing on the date. And it's
I
got,
really
like
like it.
Yeah, it's cute. Yeah. And the fan site question has changed to, would you join the Phantom Thieves? To which the bar goes much lower.
It sounds like a lot of work, you know?
Yeah.
What's the pay system? How's the healthcare? A lot of questions need to get answered before you say yes.
So the first thing that happens is you get a call or a text, I can't remember which, from Kasumi, who basically is like, hey, you remember that really important promise we made? You promised to go to the shrine with me, so let's go to the shrine today. And you're like, fine. Like, you're really kind of sour about it.
Yeah.
And then you walk downstairs and, well, I guess Sojiro asks you to help out, right? So you're helping out in LeBlanc, and some stuff happens. And Jonathan, I want your reaction to what this stuff is, because it starts off with a very hot man sitting at the bar.
Well, excuse me, it starts off with a bunch of elderly patrons talking about how glad
yes.
they are the shop is open. Come on, Tom. Obviously,
Yes,
they're the big bads we're going to be fighting in a few weeks. You can't hide this from me. I know the game secrets.
I didn't want to make it too obvious.
So anyway, these people keep going. What I like about, I just wanted to bring them up mostly because I like that they go on for a very long time. It's sort of the same thing that the game does earlier to me, where like it buries important information either behind sort of small talk or in the middle of small talk. And so it's like, they're just going on and things kind of just seem pleasant and whatever. And then, yeah, there's just this, blue-eyed guy at the bar just sitting there with some handsomeness and is like, oh, you silly guy, my compadre. Ho, ho, ho. What a laugh we're having together because you don't know who I am. How silly. And oh my God.
Did you know right away?
It took me a second because my brain immediately went, why is the guy from TV here? And then I was like, oh, I haven't had enough coffee today, you idiot. But it did take me just a second because I was thinking of that. Like, I was just so thrown.
Yeah.
And so I started to suspect. But obviously we learn a little bit later. Yeah.
The thing that we're dancing around, but it does get just revealed the next day, is that this is Morgana as a human.
Yep.
And I really like the design of Morgana as a human because, like, he's got this, like, gold necklace as the, like, collar or the bandana, right? And, like, the eyes being the blue and then everything else being red or black, is like, it's really a fun design for Morgana as a human.
It's really great. It is sort of like basic human idea from an animal. What would it look like? And like,
Yeah.
just sort of stereotypically handsome, but has just enough markings to let you know and hint on it's the character. And I think the thing for me, like that, was because does that happen? That happens before the Futaba stuff.
Yes,
right.
Futaba comes in later,
and so I think the Futaba stuff was where my brain really clicked in. I think that's when my mind went, oh, that's that. So that must be Morgana.
Right,
was kind of how it went for me.
Yeah, this was unfortunately, this was a thing that I kind of had spoiled for me a little bit in my initial playthrough because they were using a photo of, like, a screenshot of human Morgana in, like, some of the promotional material for Royal.
Oh, weird. I missed that.
So, like, and if you, like, are seeing it as promo material and you, like, see a human with blue eyes and a yellow necklace in, like, Joker's room, you can kind of, like, piece that together, what they might be teasing.
Yeah, that's fair. That's, yeah. Wow, I'm surprised they just revealed that. That's wild.
They revealed it really early, like, pre-game coming out. They showed that off. Man.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I'm glad that, it's a fun moment.
It's really cool.
You piece that together.
And I think that with the combination of, and like not to steal what you were going to set up, but just sort of like Futaba coming in dressed up for the holiday and the visit to the shrine, saying she picked it out with her mom, and Joker then being like, well, huh? Because it's very much, it would be odd if it's like, I picked it out with my mom years ago and it just happens to fit me perfectly now. Yeah. And I'm not expressing any sadness about that. It was like, yeah, right, it's probably not that. And so I was like, she's back?
Yeah, it's a weird sort of like throw you into the fire sort of moment. And then you have to go to the shrine, and Sojiro says, make sure you dress up for the weather or whatever. And this is the best part about the Royal DLC, obviously.
Okay, thank God we're aligned. This was one of my biggest points I was going to bring out. The winter fashion is phenomenal.
Everyone gets new outfits. Every cast member.
I'm so excited. I saw his jacket. I was like, oh, damn, that's good.
Yeah,
it's
a good look.
Even like Futaba's new sweatshirt that we see on in the next day or two, I'm like, we're all getting winter clothes. I love this.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's really great. I love that they do this. And it's also very funny because they keep these winter... So you know how there's like in the base game, you get some quick cutscenes right through kind of like that would happen this period.
Yeah.
Those are all in their old outfits in the base game, and in Royal they're all in the new outfits because they're in their winter outfits. That's awesome. And it's like one of those ways that you can differentiate like which game the same cutscene is from.
That's
because,
really
like,
cool.
Now there's new outfits.
And they're really good
I like
outfits.
the new outfits.
Yeah.
So you go to the shrine, and there's a quick cutscene of you and Kasumi meeting up, and then also the whole gang being there at the shrine, which is great, right? Everyone is there. Although I think the gang shows up potentially after the cutscene. But point being,
they're part of the cutscene. No, they're
okay. They're in the cutscene.
Yeah,
I don't remember how.
Look, let's break down the cutscene frame by frame. I think that's what everyone wants.
But there's a nice cutscene where you meet up with Kasumi and she looks adorable, and then you do the thing for the shrine, and then your whole group is there, and you're like, wow, what an amazing coincidence that everyone showed up to this exact spot at this exact time.
Huh, and then, what happenstance. Anyway, let's talk about how busy we are with strange things.
Yeah. So Joker immediately kind of understands that something weird is happening.
Yeah.
Because everyone has plans in ways that are not expected. So
not possible, you mean?
Yes, that. So like Ryuji says like, I'm gonna go like see what the track team is up to, right? And An is like, I'm gonna go hang out with Shiho, which are both like kind of lower level. Like, wait, that's weird.
Yeah,
right? But okay. And then there's weirder stuff where Futaba's like, I gotta go with my mom, and Haru's like, I'm gonna go hang out with my dad, and you're like, wait, what?
Do I have to break some bad news again? Yeah, it's that.
Similarly, Makoto says like, I'm gonna go spend it with my family when her family is like just Sai.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember what Yusuke's is, actually.
I don't know if there is, because I didn't write anything down. I wrote all of theirs down, and I don't have anything for Yusuke.
Okay. Well, then Yusuke has no
dreams.
No dead loved ones to resurrect.
I mean, you know.
I guess he literally does.
Yeah. Anyway, this was a really fun moment. It's really funny seeing this, and obviously I don't want to say too much to spoil any other media, but like the idea of, the world around me has changed, like things are different, the sort of like It's a Wonderful Life-ish nature to it is also very timely for the holidays. But it's seeing the progression of it, and I think the Futaba moment in the cafe was where I first understood what was happening, and then seeing how it continues to do that, and realizing, obviously it's spoiling what happens in a day, but it's on this show, so it's like spoiling the idea that reality isn't the same anymore, and seeing how, like, I knew that was the concept essentially. And I like stories like that. I know it's an easy cliche to fall back on a lot in storytelling, because you can so easily just create things that you wouldn't expect to be congruous with the characters that you have. But, you know, after 100+ hours with all these characters, I think it works, and I think it's exciting to explore that. The way it unfolds, I really enjoy.
I agree. I think it is, of course, wildly convenient from a storytelling DLC perspective.
Yes.
but that doesn't mean it's not like really weird and cool and you're like, oh, what is going on? Like that all works too.
Yeah.
At least in this early kind of couple days.
Yeah, I think it works because I give the game the benefit of the doubt to pull a move like this because we are 100+ hours in.
Yeah.
And so I was initially going back and forth as I was playing this week of like, do I like that they're using this? Because it is a very common trope of a way to do things. Especially around the holidays. But I'm okay with it at the moment and enjoyed finding out what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, everyone has plans and they all ditch you, except for Kasumi, who wants to hang out. Except, oh wait, then her dad calls and she has to get picked up and go hang out with family.
Yeah.
And we meet her dad. Her dad shows up, and guess what? He's wearing the red glasses that we helped pick out.
I liked that. That was a very cute touch.
Yeah, and he likes them.
Yeah.
And then he says something to Kasumi that gets weirdly staticky, and everyone's like, and then moves on. And Kasumi leaves.
I do want to say, I think this scene is funny because regardless of if you have romance someone in the game, this scene heavily feels like a romance, like, hint at scene.
I think all of Royal sort of makes it feel like it is expecting you to date Kasumi.
Yeah.
Right? Like, not necessarily forcing you to or anything, not necessarily making it weird if you don't, but, like, it feels like they are anticipating the fact that you've probably beaten this game already and want to date the new person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which, like, it hasn't been an option yet, too, and I think that was the only reason why it's been weird for me, is like, well, I chose to romance someone earlier, but it will be weird if I have to, like, also choose, because it does feel like the game is naturally progressing you, and this feels very much like a moment where it's, oh, you're meeting the parents of the girl that you like and who likes you, and it's embarrassing and nervous and everything. It feels very much like that scene.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. And I don't know, like, apart from, like, Okumura, I don't know what other parents you meet. And I guess you never meet Okumura in person.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think. I mean,
because Ryuji's mom is just sort of like this ethereal figure that doesn't exist.
She's like a Charlie Brown adult.
Yeah, exactly.
You get
that's a good way to put it.
Obviously, you get Sojiro and Futaba, but your relationship to Sojiro also is very important. And I guess you could argue the same for Makoto and Sai, but Sai is more like out of your control, whereas you can choose to spend time with. And both of those are romanceable people. But
because An's parents are never around.
Yeah.
Yusuke's parents are gone. Ryuji's dad is gone, but his mom is, like, just never on screen. Mm-hmm. Futaba's parents are Sojiro and Wakaba, who you do kind of meet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you don't really meet any parents in this game except for this one.
Well, I was going to say, and Akechi has no issues with his family whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a dad you meet. That's one dad.
I'm sorry, everything comes back to dad issues.
Although I guess you don't actually meet Shido in person either.
You run into him by the elevators early on.
Of course you do. I'm an idiot.
You know,
I'm
the
a
beginning.
Stupid, dumb idiot. It's literally the very beginning of the game. What's wrong with me? Moving on. Embarrassingly.
Tom, that was 8 months ago. Who remembers what they did a week ago?
Yeah, that's fair. That was a year ago. No.
Almost.
So there was, after that, you kind of get like a text message conversation with your friends, right? About like, they're talking about the first dream of the new year, which is a thing in Japanese culture. And also share a cute little photo that happens during the day. And basically it's like all a little too normal. And Joker like knows something is up, right? Like immediately Joker is like, something is like going on here that is weird, whereas everybody else just seems to be acting like it's all totally normal.
Yeah, it's again, it's the like using the sort of perfunctory or sort of the everyday and casual small talk to represent that something else is going on, which I like.
Yeah. Anyway, now we're on to January 2nd,
which the game of course skips.
Yes. Nothing happens this day. No, this is the big day. This is the big big day.
Man, it really does not waste any time.
It does not. Starting with, you wake up in bed with a hot dude.
just cuddling you. Yeah, that was... I think if there was any doubt beforehand that this was Morgana, that probably...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you wake up in bed with Hot Dude, and you're like, what is going on? And Hot Dude is like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, you.
Yeah. I just love that so much.
Yeah, I do. And obviously there's more to the day for Morgana, but yeah, it is a very funny, just like, oh, silly you, come on, this is how it just always works. And it's like, I don't know, for a game that doesn't let you have a same-sex relationship, I don't feel like this is how it normally works.
Right.
So yeah, it was, that's sort of the first beat of this morning getting weird, and then obviously we hear the woman's voice downstairs.
Yes. So you go downstairs to breakfast, and Sojiro and Futaba and Wakaba are all eating breakfast together very casually. And it's just treated like nothing is wrong. And you're like, I don't know about you, but I definitely chose the option that was like asking her like, Sphinx lady?
I loved that option. It was so funny because it's like, wait, hold on, or this is strange, or like, lady from the pyramid? Am I getting that right? Yeah. It's such a funny dialogue choice.
And she's funny and charming and very fun, and everything is hunky-dory, and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I also really appreciate at one point, God, when does this happen? Oh yeah, when Sojiro says Wakaba's name, and you get like a flashback to Sojiro talking about like how Wakaba had died, and it's like, yeah, we know who Wakaba is. Like,
we remembered.
I mean, I know it's been months, but like, come on.
There was, can I give you this is a very weird tangent, but this actually reminds me. So we watched Cruella on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
And I guess it's very vague spoilers for Cruella, but there's like a moment.
She doesn't like dogs.
Ooh, there's a moment at the end where it makes a big reveal, and it flashes back to literally within the last 5 minutes of like a scene that happened to remind you that happened. And just immediately I was like, we didn't need that. I actually enjoyed the movie. Like, it was kind of a fun, just silly, whatever movie. But there was that moment where I was like, we could have edited that out. That didn't benefit anyone. But it's funny when stuff gets put into movies like that, because normally it is a like, oh, audience testing, people didn't remember why this was important.
Right.
And so presumably they did that because they were worried people would have forgotten. But I'm like, I don't know. I care about Futaba a lot. I kind of remembered that her mom is dead and we fought a fake Sphinx version of her.
Yeah. We've talked about this in other parts of this too, of like just the like kind of cutting back, reminding you, because it is a big game and it's not like I mind it. It's just like very funny with such a major character.
Exactly. It would make a lot of sense if it was a smaller moment like Pancakes. But yeah, this was a very funny moment where it was like, I think I know what Futaba's deal is. I think I'm good there.
Akechi walks in the door next, and it's just like, it doesn't give you a flashback to be like, Akechi.
Well, though we do get an Akechi flashback a little bit later.
Oh, yeah. But we do. Yeah. So
Akechi appears.
Akechi walks in, which is unexpected, because he should be in jail.
Yep.
And
we
he
all
walks
look
up
fabulous.
To you. Yeah, and he walks up to you and immediately just is like, oh yeah, his new outfit, I forgot.
Yeah.
And is like, something's up, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, something's up. And so you leave and you go to the laundromat across the street to talk. And basically, he's like, they just let me go.
Yep.
I don't know what the deal is, but they just let me walk. And everyone is acting weird, and something is really wrong here, and I don't know what, and let's team up to solve the case.
Yeah. Well, one thing before we get to that, because I do want to talk about just my reaction to all of that.
Yeah, please.
There is also a moment here where we ask him, or you can, like, it's technically one of the 3 dialogue options, but I assume probably most people pick it, and 2, the game would show you it in some way. You can be like, but wait, how are you alive? And that's where it flashes back to the scene of him and his double about to shoot each other. And he's like, but we don't need to talk about that right now, and brushes that off. And I was like, okay, all right. I don't know if that comes up later in the month. Obviously, please don't tell me. But I do really like the idea that the game is like, we don't need to explain that. It's fine. It's fine. He's back.
Let's just keep going. Keep it going.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
He does say at that point, though, like, I'm offended you would think so little of me, or whatever. Like that, like a shadow could kill me. So he kind of dodges it, but also is like, sort of like, come on, like what?
I can handle this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that moment was just funny to me because it stood out, because I was like, oh, there is a way they could have done this as a very long explanation. And I was kind of glad in the moment that it wasn't, let's take 20 minutes to deal with this, because Akechi's back and that's what matters.
If you go and after this conversation go back into your room and talk to Futaba, she explains everything about how he escaped. Okay, and it's a very long extra conversation.
Operation Double Team Akechi, and it's
Don't say that. That has other meanings.
What? You mean the Disney Channel original movie Double Teamed?
Yes.
DComs. Anyway, the moment where he is, I'm glad I broke Tom. The beginning of this, like from the first moment, I just want to, because it will come up, I think, throughout this, like just a huge hats off to, I think, the writing of it, that they still don't let up on the fact that Akechi has turned. Like at this point, it's not as if he starts becoming a good person again.
No. Right.
And he is still,
we'll see more of that.
Yeah, like he is still Akechi on another level, like the true Akechi. And just like, I know I said this before the Christmas break, but just again, a hats off to Robbie Daymond, I think, for so easily, not easily, obviously it's his work that makes it happen, but like so convincingly selling the difference between the two Akechis. Like just in everyday conversation of things, even when he's not talking about murdering people, like he still feels evil at every beat. And it's just really good.
Yeah, and the only thing they've toned down right is like the face a bit.
Yeah.
Like, because his face after he turns evil is like always like really crazy, and
it's a bit more like Joker face. The Batman Joker, not our Joker.
Yeah,
like that sort of.
Now his face it's definitely much more like still sort of like something brewing behind his eyes, but like not like he's literally going insane.
Yeah. It's really well done. But yeah, anyway, so he offers us this team up, as you were saying.
Yeah. Decides he's like, it will benefit both of us to find out what is going on here, so let's team up to figure out what's going on here. And then you immediately get a call in the middle of this from Kasumi, who says that the palace that you guys went into months ago, right, over in Odaiba, is faintly visible while in the real world. And you go, uh-oh, and Akechi hears this on the phone, and you run over to meet her there.
That shouldn't be happening. Let's go.
Yeah. So you get there, and you discover that basically either nobody else is noticing this or cares. Like, it's not jumping out to them in any way.
Yeah.
You also find out that the Nav app is back on your phones, although instead of being red, it's kind of like a silvery blue, right, icon. And you go to check the search history like you did a million years ago before Kasumi's phone died, and the name of the palace in it is censored. So you can't tell what it is, whose palace it is, because they really want to just keep this reveal lingering.
I do like that they are... It's one of those funny things where it's like, oh, well, we don't have the name, so we can't get in. And Akechi or whoever is like, don't worry, we can still use it as a search history and be able to click it and go in. It's like, yes, it does work like a Safari browser.
Yeah.
It's very funny, but it essentially just sets up... I think what I liked about this all was just the weirdness of it, continuing to sell the idea that not only is reality a miss, but just the things we thought were over with are not, in a very stark way.
And so you go into the palace immediately to investigate. Were you expecting this? Were you expecting just like right away you go into the palace?
No, I thought for sure. I don't know what my expectations were for this month. Like, obviously I knew there would be one more palace because we saw this palace earlier, and then like it had to have come back.
Yeah, not like it's just gonna go away.
Exactly. So I knew there would be a palace, but I figured there would be like honestly, I thought it would roll out almost like a micro version of the entire game, where it would be like a short week of kind of social stuff, and maybe they'd introduce another mini game or two, and maybe I'd hang out with people for a bit, and there would be like a new level to hang out with Kasumi for a day, and then we would go into the palace in like a week because things were up. But I do appreciate that it doesn't wait to get you into that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea how meaty like this section of the game will feel overall, but I do like that it gets you going there and gets you so much essential information right off the bat, because it doesn't linger in a way I think it could have, in a way I was expecting it to, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And it, like, while I was playing through it too, I was like, I can't remember how much they reveal in this, like, this first intro to the palace. Like, I don't remember, like, and it turns out it's basically a lot.
Yeah.
So we can keep moving. One thing that's of note is that when you go into the palace, the transition is different, right? It's this sort of like weird gridded, again, like bluey, purpley, white transition. And then when you're in the palace, the like corners of your vision that are usually red are sort of more like bluey, and like it's all a little different, right? It's like going out of its way to like point out that this is similar but different. It's not just the metaverse again or whatever. It's not just like exactly what was going on before.
Exactly.
At least. So you get into the palace, and the main difference from the last time you were there, I guess we should talk about this. Akechi is in his evil outfit.
Yep.
He's just straight up like, I have no reason to hide who I am anymore.
Yeah, he's like, other than Kasumi not knowing, like, who cares? It's, I'm this is me, and this is the darkness inside me brewing, and he's really ready to just have My Chemical Romance blaring behind him as he, like, slaughters all the persona ahead of him. But
if you look at the run of show, my note for this moment was, Akechi is scary, and then there's a note just a little bit later that is, seriously, Akechi is so scary.
He is, yeah. He also has great hearing, it turns out, as we learn.
Yes.
Because it obviously comes a little bit later, but like after one of the fights, Kasumi is like, is he always like this? Like, is this him?
Like I think she says like bloodthirsty or something. Like, or,
yeah.
Like, yeah.
There is some word. Let me see if I wrote it down. But yeah, there is like is he always this, killing like? Because yeah, we're bad. It's not good. But yeah, let me see if I can find it.
I'm gonna say, again, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but Akechi in general and how they handle him through this DLC section is like probably my favorite part of Royal.
Okay.
And like this whole palace exploration where he's the voice in your ear instead of Morgana or Makoto or Futaba, and he's just like so cruel and like, let's murder them, and like just talking like horrifically, and his call outs in combat where he's just like getting into that like really like kind of scratchy, high pitchy screech sort of sound that Robbie Damon does with his voice occasionally. Like, he's just so freaking brutal, and like I love that that's the direction they've taken him here, right? That they're like, you know what? You had a whole palace with Akechi as a good guy, faking who he was, and now you know who he is, and now you get to see Akechi, you get to partner up with Akechi when he's just like going, when he is just going. And
obviously I can't spoil it because I don't know what happens. I don't know if there's any attempt at redeeming him at some point, but I like that there isn't that attempt now. The word she uses is ruthless.
Ruthless,
ruthless. After one of the fights, and it's I like that they don't shy away from this, because otherwise every other character who has joined up with you, has been like, obviously they're ready to kick butt and save the world and everything and get into the action, but they're not like this. None of them are like this, and so to have such a different opposite end of behavior in the metaverse, I think is just such a cool touch. And as you said, you feel it in the combat, I think, some of the most, when he is saying all those things and is so consistent with it. It's really, really cool. And I just think, like, obviously before the big reveals at the end, you get him getting the sense of being a little bit, again, a step ahead of you, because he is meant to be that smart of a character and meant to be that fast and that on his feet. And so he immediately picks up on sort of the, I think he calls it like cultish nature of the way the shadows are talking. And says like, that gives us a lot of insight into the palace ruler. You bring up Kasumi a couple of times, and when you're talking about Kasumi, he questions that a little bit.
He's picking up on it.
Yeah, he picks up on all that stuff, and I appreciate that they kept that as part of the
He's still
character.
smart as hell.
Yeah, which I love.
Also, there's a little bit of a mechanical thing that I really like with him switching from Robin Hood to Loki in his personas, is that Robin Hood, his nice persona, was weak to curse and had bless and curse attacks. And now Loki is weak to bless and doesn't have his bless attacks anymore.
Just his curse, yeah.
Which is just like a really very simple, cool thing, right?
It was
like
great.
It's just very nice little touch.
Yeah.
So you go into the palace. The main thing you find out about the palace, it's way full of people, and it's some sort of clinic or something to, like, make people happy. They just talk about, like, taking away people's worries and making them happy. And, of course, there are shadows in there that don't want you to stop them, see you as intruders or whatever, and that they're, like, here for the salvation of the world or whatever they say, right? So you sort of fight your way through this palace. Again, Akechi is just so cool.
Yeah. It, like, I tend to play pretty good in games, but to have this bad voice with you the whole time is pretty great. He's just like, yeah, let's do it. Come on.
It's such a different personality from the rest of the game
that
totally. You're used to.
The trio of them together is really fun too. Just
right. And you get Kasumi as well. Yeah.
Especially if you have all of them just in their standard outfits of just, it's a very cool black palette of outfits of the three of them. Like, there's not much color to any of them, and I think it works in really good contrast to, obviously, there's notes of red with Kasumi, but just in very nice contrast to how starkly white and bright and as you were saying, almost like clinical everything is here.
Yeah it's so you fight your way through the palace. You kind of go through this one door at one point, and there's a screen, a TV screen, and you watch a moment of Kasumi's dad mourning over a dead body that has been covered, right?
Kasumi's sister. And I was like, oh, yeah, how sad. Kasumi's sister, as we know. Huh, why aren't they showing her? That seems weird.
Yeah. So they don't show her. Kasumi has a freak out moment where she kind of feels like there's this feeling like there's something important she needs to remember, but she can't remember what, but also she feels like she absolutely must not remember it, right? Like it's this pull internally. But she wants to know the truth. And so she decides, let's keep pushing. Let's go find this palace ruler. Let's see what's going on. You have another moment where you like fight some shadows that are like, fine, if you want to know the truth, then here's the truth. And it shows this moment where a girl who is in gymnastics outfit and looks like Kasumi and has just won a trophy. And the difference is that her hair and her eyes are brown instead of red.
And also is it like a mole or like a beauty mark
I don't know.
on her face? That's what I first noticed, but yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So she's looks like Kasumi, but a little different. And says she's winning some award and she's accepting it. She's saying thank you. She even sounds like Kasumi. And then she says like, oh, there's my sister in the audience, Sumire. And she's waving at Kasumi. And then you get a voice over the PA that sounds very familiar. Who's like, just stop fighting it. Just go back to reality and stop fighting this. You'll be happier that way. But Kasumi really wants to know the truth. So you go down and the voice over the PA says, fine, I'll come talk to you.
What I loved about that was, well, one, to me, I was just like, huh, that's a weird moment. Didn't think anything about Kasumi waving at Kasumi. I really just was like, oh, I guess because we're the only people standing there. And she would look like her. But then also, just for reference, I think you're a little bit fuzzy. The funny thing there was just, to get the voice to come out, Akechi basically just baits him out. And
Yeah.
it's like, why don't you just show yourself? Stop this. I don't want to have to keep talking to you this way. I was like, all right, cool.
Akechi just has no patience for any of this the entire time, right?
Yeah. Even in there was a moment right before that gymnastics scene where one of the fights against a persona, it starts off with Kasumi rushing in and trying a bunch of attacks that don't hit at all. And he's just like, no, don't do that. Like, we need to coordinate and be on the same page, and that won't work.
Yeah, it's cool to see Akechi be so brutal and so, like you were saying, still like not out of control.
Yes.
Except for when he wants to kill something, he is just like ruthless.
Except for spoilers, the showtime later. But anyway.
Yeah, that one is really good. Anyway, we'll get there. But first, we get the big reveal, which I assume you saw coming.
At this point, I think I knew. Again, I haven't been spoiled. I didn't know it was going to be the case, but I think in the back of my head, as we were going into the royal content, I was like, "There's no way Maruki was in the rest of the game and not important in the royal content."
Yeah.
And then when we were in the palace so early, I was like, "Okay, for this to matter, it would have to be him or I guess Kasumi's dad, but like that wouldn't hit the same way."
Right.
Those were kind of my two thoughts of who it could be at this point. Because it had to be someone who has existed in the story somewhat, at least at the time we went to the first palace, which is wild, or when we went to the palace for the first time, which also to me is this wild case of, we don't really get the sense of how long the palaces exist in the game the rest of the time. Like, I guess you could make the case that Shido's palaces existed for a while, but I never thought of it that way. Like, for me, they always sort of existed probably not too long before we got into them, which is maybe just silly thinking. But here it's like, oh no, we have fundamental proof that this palace has just been there.
Yeah.
And that whoever this person is has been in that state of mind for this long.
And of course, that person is Dr. Maruki, which is why you needed to max out his confidant rank to get here.
Makes sense. Yeah. Hopefully everyone did.
So the whole deal, right, is that you helped him with his research on cognitive science and changing people to, right, his whole deal is that he's trying to heal people's mental pain in the same way that you can heal their physical pain. And what he says now is he's figured out a way to, he's figured out a way to alter reality to people's wishes, right? Which is, even Akechi is like, that's like crazy, right? Like, A, to do, but B, that you have that power is nuts, right?
When Akechi disagrees with you in that way, when Akechi thinks you've gone too far.
Yeah.
Basically.
The other thing that's interesting here that's just a nice little throwback is if you do go back and watch the scene where you first go into this palace, what is it? Kasumi mentions Maruki's name, and then there are two NPCs who just kind of pass by.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them is like, what's this building? Is it some kind of laboratory? And the other one, and then Kasumi's like, it's not a lab, it's a like a sports stadium or whatever. And then those are the keywords, and that's all of the thing. And so she gets into Maruki's palace in like basically the exact same way that you and Ryuji do for Kamoshida's way back in the beginning.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. That's such a
So there is that sort of hint of, if you notice that Maruki's like the only name she kind of mentions there, like you can sort of piece that together really, really early.
That's really cool. I love that.
But again, it's very subtle.
Yeah. No, that's so good. But yeah, this was, I think it being Maruki was less of a gut punch than what we find out after, but it still works really well. Like, it was one of those things where I also love the way he's behaving here, because just in addition to him being like all clad in white with his like hair slicked back, looking like, I don't know, a tech CEO.
Or a Bond villain.
Yeah, but he acts in that so like, oh, what I'm doing isn't wrong. Like,
right.
Oh, you say
he's
palace. ruler.
He's super calm about it.
Exactly. I don't know what those things mean. Like, that's not what this is to me. And talks about sort of having the reality of this both be like, he's created both this and the reality outside of it now. Is such a cool, just like, oh my God, how powerful is this man? Like, yeah. I can see maybe why it was bad if this research got into the wrong hands, because boy, can you somehow gain tremendous power. And the fact that, I don't know exactly when this comes up, so forgive me if I'm jumping ahead, but that he sort of says like, oh, I've had a sort of, this comes up later, but just I've had a bit of this power for forever, is like,
right.
Oh my God.
Which is, we get their big reveal.
Oh, you've known this whole time. We've been calling her Kasumi, and you haven't let on a word.
I know.
Oh my God.
I even made a joke at one point. Okay, so let's get to the real.
Oh no! Did you layer in a joke in the show like they?
I did.
Oh my God. I guess go back and re-listen, everyone.
So, well, first of all, God, where am I going? The show now turns into a telenovela, or the game turns into a telenovela briefly, because you get a cutscene where, from the perspective of Sumire, you are watching Kasumi, who is the brown-haired girl, and Sumire is feeling really down on herself, and saying Kasumi's the one who gets all the awards, and Sumire sucks, and Kasumi's trying to like make her feel better and being very friendly older sister, and then Sumire gets very sad and runs off. Right? Because she feels like she's a burden on Kasumi or whatever. Runs away, and Kasumi chases her down, and she runs into the middle of traffic, and Kasumi saves her life by pushing her out of the way of a car and gets hit herself. And Kasumi dies, and then you have this really harsh reveal, right, where Sumire is sitting there in the rain looking at her dead sister with her long hair, and then Kasumi in the actual, in like present day, like drops to her knees and her bun falls out and she has the long hair, and it's revealed that she is actually Sumire all along.
The hair change was so good. The hair change was my favorite part, but just to convey like how shocked I was as it was happening, I was like live typing down notes, and I was like, okay, Sumire runs into traffic and gets hit. Wait, no, Kasumi does, not Sumire. Kasumi died, and Kasumi is Sumire. And I just kept writing their names like 12 times because I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, so way back when we were talking about maxing out Kasumi, we were talking about what, like, the weirdness of it, and I made a joke that was like, she's been dead the whole time. And it was... Can't believe you spoiled Persona 5 Royal for me. I know. I'm sorry.
That's so good. That is congratulations to you. That is very well played. Very well played.
So the funny thing, interesting too, is so we now have to start calling her Sumire because she's Sumire.
It doesn't come out that way though.
A lot of the community online will actually type her name out as Kasumire.
I was just going to say we should portman to it. Yeah.
Because it's Ka-Sumi and Sumi-Re, right? Yeah. So the two middle, like the two characters are the same, which I'm sure is intentional, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she's Sumire and not Kasumi. And Maruki has basically changed her cognition to make her think that she wanted to change her cognition because she couldn't live in a world where she was the reason that her sister was dead. So instead, she like mentally made her sister be alive through her, right? Mm-hmm. Is like kind of what's going on here, roughly speaking.
I guess for me, and maybe you can tell me, maybe it spoils it. So if not, I understand. So like, just to make sure I have it right, she saw herself as Kasumi because she couldn't live on in a world where Kasumi wasn't living. Like it wasn't fair.
And where it was her fault.
Yeah, exactly. So she like mentally believes that she is Kasumi. Yeah. And Maruki makes that essentially happen for her so that she can live thinking she is Kasumi. And so
yeah, that's my understanding of it, right? Because she's had this happen for months at this point.
But everyone else, I guess, aside from our friend group, who I have told her is Kasumi, and we find out why I think she's Kasumi, but everyone else thinks or like knows she is Sumire, right? So like her dad would have known she is Sumire, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you go back and you watch the cutscene where her dad's like voice is like clipped or whatever and gets fuzzy, the only thing that makes it through is Ray. So it's like implied that he's saying her name and she just doesn't hear it.
Okay.
The other thing you can go back and look at through all this, because there's a ton of little Easter eggs here and there. Like they point out, right, the only reason you thought she was Kasumi was because when she valiantly saved that balloon, her student ID thing dropped and it said Kasumi Yoshizawa on it. So clearly she was like holding her sister's thing, but you just assumed she was Kasumi.
I love that this dumb moment that I have mocked so endlessly of the valiant balloon saving was that important.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so cool. It's so good.
But there's other things like when you'll know the other thing you can notice is that your friends, you introduce her to your friends, but anyone who already knew her only ever calls her Yoshizawa-san.
Okay.
So, like, Akechi only ever calls her Yoshizawa. Kawakami, Maruki, they only ever call her Yoshizawa. And so, like, they all know that she's Sumire, but they just never say her name. They only ever call her Yoshizawa. And similarly, that's why when you say Kasumi next to Akechi, Akechi is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Because he knows that she's Sumire, and he kind of just lets it play out because he realizes something is happening, right? Like, he realizes something else is going on.
It's so good. Oh, my God.
I really did appreciate on a second playthrough knowing all of this stuff, right? Because you catch a lot of little moments where you're like, oh, they phrased that thing really specifically to make it so that this doesn't break this illusion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's such that's a very interesting, sorry, I'm trying to piece together because I'm just in so many different places because it's so wild.
Yeah, please. Please.
What to me is very interesting is that it also works because of the way I think Japanese naming conventions work, in the sense of we in English wouldn't like call her Yoshizawa all the time. Like, say you do call your friends casually by their last name at certain ages, and certain friend groups do that, but typically, like, people would call you always by your first name, at least growing up, where I did. So this wouldn't...
Or at least that's how you would be introduced.
Yes, yeah. And so that works, I think, also because of the way they often, like, Japanese people do use certain referencing to show age and to show deference and things, and respect and things of that nature. Like, it works on that level too, and I'm just so impressed by that, because if it were just a bunch of kids from New York or something, it would be harder to fake that without it feeling unnatural. But it doesn't, at least to someone who is not Japanese watching this game about Japanese kids. But yeah, I just think the naming works so well, and it's hidden so well behind all that stuff throughout the game, that looking back, nothing ever felt out of place or awkward.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is a trick of the kind of just the structure of that Japanese language that allows this trick to work really well.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And I mean, this reveal was like very wild telenovela drama to me when I first saw it. Not that that's a bad thing, right? It's just like, oh man, this is like a big old twist.
I mean, I love Jane the Virgin for all of its ridiculous twists. I
love that show too.
Telenovelas are a thing, and for a very good reason. But it's so good, and I do think the moment of her hair falling down is just so well played.
It's very artfully done.
Yeah, because this is, like, I think what you're saying by the telenovela comment is that it's just so wild. Like, it is such a big, audacious thing to reveal that a character has been using the identity of a dead character and convinced themselves they are that dead character. Like, it's so
and a character you've known for so long is the other part of it, right? Like this, you don't get this a lot in games. I mean, you do definitely in JRPGs because they are long, but it is rarer in games to have a character that you've spent so much time with, like, suddenly be someone else, right? Like, is not incredibly frequent, at least I will say. And it's not as effective as this when you've spent so much long time with them.
Yeah, exactly. It is because she has been... It would not have hit the same if Kasumi was introduced, in December or something. Like
Right.
it works
Right.
because you know her and because you've bonded with her and because she has been a part of the whole thing. And I think very well integrated for a character who wasn't there the whole time originally.
Right. So let's move on from that because it is a big deal, but there's a couple more things we got to touch on really quick.
Yes.
First of all, Maruki basically explains his motivations, and like you were alluding to already, his like stated goal is that he wants to end all suffering, right? He wants to end the world's suffering. So it is not like a malicious, like Shido, I want to rule the country sort of goal necessarily, at least stated by him. But Akechi, who's kind of acting as your voice for a lot of this, is basically like, no, like, we would all be living under your thumb, right?
Yeah.
Like, we would all be living at your whim that you could change reality however you wanted. And, like, that's all. And he accuses him. He's like, that's all you want, is you just want to be able to, the power of controlling people. And Maruki kind of, like, takes offense to that a little bit, but, like, sort of leaves it up to Kasumi to be like, do you want to be Sumire? Or do you want to go back to being Kasumi? And she very much says, like, I cannot live as Sumire anymore. Like, I want to go back.
Yeah.
And goes back to him, and he's gonna, like, change her back into remembering that she's Kasumi. Because she just can't handle it otherwise, she says. And you say, all right, then we'll take her by force. And Maruki even, and this is, like, a conflicting thing, right? Because Maruki's like, realize that if you're trying to take her, like, you're going against her wishes here, right? So it's like a thing I really appreciate about all of this whole setup is, like, at least initially, right, it's pretty gray. Like, it is not cut and dry as, like, this man is evil doing evil deeds as some of the other villains in this game have been.
You can see why people would want what he is offering.
Sure.
And that obviously comes into play where, like, the week leaves off, but it's, to me, I think it is, at least for me, it is cut and dry in the sense of what Akechi's saying of, we are essentially just creating another god who we all live under in the same way that we just had to defeat the last god. Like,
yeah, like a week ago.
We can't just keep fighting gods. It's too much. We have to go to school at some point and take our finals, but we would essentially be allowing for that to happen. And even if that's not what he wants, it's way too easy to have someone get that much power, like on a level that is just incomprehensible to then keep existing and acting in that way when they are essentially just a human. Like, it is a different thing of, to dip back into, I guess, like, religious doctrine. It's not like God started out as a human who then gained godlike powers in Christianity.
Right.
Like, that's not how that works. And so it's like, Maruki is still immortal and still a human with all those flaws, and to let him ascend to that level would be potentially catastrophic. Because like you said, he could just change it how he wants.
So you're gonna fight him, and he says, fighting's not my thing, and instead a giant tentacle monster comes out, and you fight that thing, and you defeat it only by using the power of teamwork, and you finally get a Joker showtime, and it's with Akechi, and it is horrific.
It's so dark. It's
so cool too.
Just the darkness of it, of them catapulting, like, and bouncing around the city street tops. One is very cool, and two, it's very silly, but immediately brought to mind the secret video. This is just a random JRPG parallel, but, like, the coolness of the secret video in Kingdom Hearts 1 that teased Kingdom Hearts 2, which is this whole, like, cityscape fight where they're bouncing around all these buildings and everything. And it was dark and moody in a way that the game hadn't been to this level before. And so, like, obviously Persona 5 has been dark, but just to have the two of them just go all out and, like, oh, we're going to just murder this thing and go insane. Yeah. It's so good. It's such a cool...
Akechi just really letting go and just using, like, horrific, jagged sword to, like, bloody his... Oh, God, it's so messed up.
Going crazy. Like, I appreciate the sort of artistic nature of showing the swipes and then showing, as I put it, Akechi just lose it with
Evil
violence.
Akechi teammate is the best.
So
I am
good.
so excited for you to see more of Evil Akechi teammate.
It's so good. But we defeat this monster. And
you defeat the monster. Maruki says, hey man, take a week. He says, go look at the new reality I've created, because all of your friends are enjoying it already, alluding to the fact that the weird stuff they were talking about, like Wakaba coming back, is his doing, right?
Yeah.
All of your friends are enjoying this new reality. They've embraced it. So why don't you go take a week, see the world, see what's up, and then come back here in 1 week and we'll talk again.
And what luck and what timing for us of this show that we get 2 massive Mondays in the royal content.
Yeah, it's good.
Again, legitimately not a planned thing. I'm not saying that facetiously. Yeah. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah, it rolls. It's really lucky timing. So you leave, and Akechi's like, let's meet up later and we'll figure this out, right? Because he's like, I'm going to go do some of my own investigating, and you go talk to your friends or whatever, because we're going to need more than just us.
And we have presumably the first of what I assume will be more talks to come, but...
Right.
Yeah.
And you go back home, and hot guy Morgana is there. And you basically, like, say a couple things to Morgana, being like, that sort of get him to start remembering stuff. And he's like, wait, was I, like, kind of implying he's, like, remembering he wasn't always human, basically?
Yeah, as I put in my notes, he hits a cat memory and is like, I gotta go think about some stuff.
Yeah. So you have this moment where you sort of kind of, like, similar to how Kasumi was, like, remembering the stuff about, or Sumire was remembering the stuff about Kasumi, you have kind of a moment where you, like, trigger a memory in Morgana's mind of, like, oh, wait, this is weird, and, like, makes him feel uncomfortable, and he leaves. Yeah. And that's the end of the week.
There's one small thing in that convo I just wanted to briefly point out, because at least for me, it sort of exemplifies why Maruki's, like, stated goals and the, like, actual actions he takes are kind of in conflict. Is Akechi calls after you've gotten home and is like, hey, I checked in with Sumire's family and they just think she's at training camp. Like, already,
right, just
in this short span of a couple hours, Maruki has already changed reality again and layered on another lie. And I think, like, that is where the fundamental problem comes from with his reality changing, is like, in order to keep things level and to keep people happy, he just has to keep layering on lies, and at least in my mind it would mean eventually things would get so conflicted and so incongruous that that would fall apart. And I think that's where, like, so much of Akechi is right here in that sense. Yeah,
which is a wild thing to say, right? Yep. And Akechi is also, like, to Akechi's point of, like, you know, even if everything went fine, like, they would be living at the whim of somebody else, right? Under the control of somebody else, which is Akechi's whole thing, is that he doesn't want to be, like, subservient to people or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so good.
But that's the week, and we'll be back. We're going to spend a week in the Maruki's new reality, and then we're going to go talk to him again next Monday.
It's so cool to be here. It's so cool.
Yeah. I'm glad that you were finally here. I'm glad that I hope you enjoyed it.
It was such a good intro. I'm glad, like I said, I think there could have been a way where this DLC really did, like, a slow burn start, and the fact that it doesn't just got me even more excited for it, because it is... Yeah. Like, I have heard so many, like, good and somewhat conflicting things about the DLC in terms of people's reactions to it overall, but on the whole, people seem to like it. And so I was just very much anticipating what it could be to live up to, you know, after such a great 100+ hours. Okay, what are you going to add at the end of it to still feel worthwhile? And so far it does, in a really cool way.
And, like, there are definitely complaints to be had about it, and I will bring those up as they come. But overall, I really enjoy this stuff, and it's very cool that, you know, 3-4 days into this new kind of
reality
section, new reality, we have our major villain, we have the palace, we have this really weird, cool new wrinkle with Akechi being on our team, right? Yeah. And then we also have this, like, really interesting subplot of, like, wow, Sumire is, like, way more complex than we thought, and her, like, confidant line was pretty simple before, so, like, it's really cool to see, like, where that character is going to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it sets up a ton of stuff, and I'm really excited to get into it more.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be very exciting.
Let's wrap up
with
our quizzes Jonathan, did you have a Persona pseudonym for me?
I do. I'm going to give you what I think is an easy one to start out with. I assume you fought it during this time.
I did, but I didn't capture any Personas this time.
Well, this one, well, at least you'll probably know which one it is. This is the Killer Teddy Bear.
Oh, I do. That's Bugs, right?
Bugs or Bugbear as it goes in other places, but yeah, Bugs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bugs. Oh, Bugbear makes sense. I get it.
Yeah,
okay.
It's cute.
Yeah, Bugs.
It's a good, it's a simple but a nice persona to start things off with. I'm sure there'll be some crazy ones to come. But do you have
I didn't capture it, but yeah.
Me neither.
I just remember that one.
I didn't capture any on this first run just because I wanted to fight them all and kind of get in the groove of it. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you have a question for us before we leave as well?
I do. I was going to ask... Actually, yeah, anyway.
Okay.
So during the text conversation where they're talking about their first dream, this is a Japanese thing in Japanese culture called Hatsuyume, which is basically like the first, you're going to party all night on January 31st, so you won't have dreams, but then on the January 1st, or the first day of the year, because it was older then, there was a different calendar back when this started, your first dream of the year will like kind of like be a portent of your future, right? And they're talking about what the three things that kind of like indicate very good luck are. And Makoto says it's if you dream about Mount Fuji, a hawk, and an eggplant, then you will have it'll be a good omen for the rest of the year. Ryuji guessed his own three. Which of those three things is the only one Ryuji got right?
I only wrote down the correct ones.
Okay.
So I'll guess next week. I'll guess, or at least I have my guess right now. Let it be known because I do want to look at the comments for next week. But I have my guess right now.
Cool.
I will tell you it after the show.
Bonus point question, what was the label that Morgana had before you realized it's Morgana? Because I almost used that one because it's funny, but that's a less exciting question. Or it's an easier question, potentially. Okay. Anyway, you can leave your comment with an answer at youtube.com/Dornology in the comment section. You can tweet at us. I'm at Tom R. Marks. He's at JM Dornbush. You can send us an email at dornology@gmail.com. Any of those places, we'd love to hear from you as we enter this very exciting new period.
Exactly. I also just wanted to mention, because one, thank you to those who already have, but, I've mentioned in the past, obviously, if you're enjoying the show, Apple Podcasts was the place to go leave a review and leave 5 stars. Please still do that. If you haven't, it does help the show get out to more Persona fans, which we want to share this and the joy of all this craziness with other Persona fans. But you can now also rate podcasts on Spotify with stars. So if you're enjoying the show and want to rate it there as well, you do have to listen to an episode on there to get it to believe you are actually a listener. But please also consider leaving. I don't think there's any writing. You just drop a star review. But please consider doing that as well.
Yeah, that's all we've got. Morgana is telling us to go to bed with him.
Yeah, that works.
As a man.
Yeah, that works. The two of us are going to snuggle in bed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is very attractive.
Yeah, so it's...
No, actually, he already said he was going to sleep on the couch this time because the bed was too small.
But he is very attractive, so we're missing out then, I guess.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah. Anyway, we will see you next week, where we'll continue this weird, wild, alternate reality odyssey, and see you then.